This right here, it's hard to see right now, it's overexposed, but there's notation on this screen. I can take this pen and write with it. Hey dude, what's your DAW of choice? Alright, Brandon, check out my previous 4 Periscopes on YouTube. Go to YouTube and type Evan Evans Music. That's going to get you my channel at the top of the search results. Click on the channel, go to educational videos. In there are the last 4. I think in every single one of them I recommend Digital Performer, but I talk about why. You're going to get a lot out of those. That's not necessarily the one that I've used my whole life. I've used Studio Vision Pro and Logic Pro. Each of those for decades. For a decade this one, decade that one. And Digital Performer really is. If I had to recommend one for somebody in this day and age with computers as powerful as they are and Digital Performer in as good shape as it is, that's the one I recommend. Go with that one. What do you think about internships at places like Remote Control versus an indie composer? If you can go work over there because you are a genius and you work fast and you don't have a girlfriend and you can work now, 24 hours a day and you're ready for that, you should do it. Okay, because if you're talented, it'll go somewhere. Hans is very generous. He's going to give you a gig, eventually after several years if you need to be groomed that long. But it depends on your talent level. Working with an indie composer, that's fine too, but it's not going to be at the level like Hans. I mean, that's very specific. But, if you can intern with an indie composer, you want it to be a one that's doing some big projects, so there's a lot of work going on and there's a lot you can do. I don't think it's really going to necessarily get you anywhere, but it will hone your skills, pay the bills, get you to meet, good people, learn a lot. I mean, the way things are done, and that's going to be very beneficial to you. Maybe there's a place like Christopher Young, someone you can work for who has 2 or 3 interns, so you can be part-time, so you can go 1, 2, or 3 days per week, and on the off time be doing your other job and own personal work, so that you can really kind of balance it all. If you can afford to intern for free, do it. I mean, you pay to learn. I mean, you got to think of it that way. But I mean, most places will pay an intern a minimum wage or something, but there are free internships, of course. But it's for educational purposes. If you're not an employee and just going to be the assistant, forever, and you have no further, graduation aspirations, then you should get paid and do that job. But if you're doing it because you want to learn and be groomed as a film composer that's going to be ready to go and know how to handle every situation, then, that's an education. You pay for your education. So if you're paying rent and doing the intern for free, then you're paying for your education. You're paying rent. Then there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think anyone should get snooty about becoming great at what they want to do. Do everything you can do to become incredible. Don't be like, I don't want to do that because that's not, that can be taboo or you shouldn't do that. Just do it. You're going to learn from it. Best way to meet filmmakers after leaving college is A, move to LA. That's where 99% of them are. And then get a subscription to IMDbPro. I think it's beyond $100 now per year, but just do it. Look for movies that are in production or in just entered post-production, and call everyone who's a producer or executive producer, possibly an editor, and the director, until you figured out if they need a composer, who to talk to. You need to leave messages. Emails are going to be like 1 in 1,000 you'll get a response back. Emails are just the worst way to go about it. You have to do it by the phone. Anyone serious in LA has assistants, that everything's done by the phone, and anything going on email is not going to be very serious. It might be the way you communicate after you've made a connection. And then follow up 10, 20 times. Go until no. And that means just keep calling, following up, follow up every single person on that one particular film, following up for weeks, months, years, until they say, no, we have a composer, or we're not even hiring a composer, or the movie fell apart, whatever. You just keep calling. Is a composer lifestyle unbalanced? How do you make time for family and everything else? Love it, thanks, yeah. Well, when you're working on a movie, you work really hard, intense hours for a month to 3 months, depending on the schedule. And it can even be 10 days to 20 days if it's really a rush. You know, I think, like, for instance, my father was jazz pianist Bill Evans, and even when he had me, he was still on the road. And when he was in high school, he was practicing piano. And he practiced piano 8 hours a day his whole entire life, including gigging, okay? So he really didn't create for himself a family, but look at what he became. I mean, he became one of the greatest jazz pianists of all time. He worked with Miles Davis, created a new landscape of music in a particular genre, cool jazz, the trio. So my point is, if you do balance a family life, I have a family, okay? I have 6 kids actually, and I have 2 stepkids and 4 of my own kids. I've had 2 wives, not at the same time. And so some of the kids live with the ex-wife, and some of my kids live with me. The person who doesn't have all that is going to get a lot farther. You know, I specifically chose to do the family thing and to try and balance it all. But in retrospect, I would say that's not the best way to serve your God-given gifts on earth. I mean, look at some of the other composers who don't have a family and are still single and just working their ass off. They're getting really far. You know, that's just something you're going to have to decide for yourself. You know, do you want to be half the composer? If it's going to be cut in half, your productivity, you know, you're not going to be able to do the best you could have done. But if you're okay with that, you know, make the compromise. What's more important, meeting new film game makers or studying under a famous guy? Like, staying independent and available and able to work for people who you wind up meeting by trying to get work versus working for a famous composer. I mean, it would have to be like one of the top 5 film composers for you to go ahead and take the gamble that by working for them, you're going to become somebody and go through their system and graduate as someone with a nice, you know, body of work that you can prove that you composed because you did ghostwriting or whatever for the guys and actually go somewhere. But that's only if it's like the top 5 guys, okay? So I recommend, unless you can get those guys, to do all those phone calls I was talking about on every gig. And by the way, manage all that in a program called HubSpot. It's really awesome. You can set up all your follow-ups. It can track your emails. You can see how long they're looking at your PDF documents and who's looking at it. And if they forwarded it to people, then who else is looking at it, when they looked at it, if they looked at it again. There's all kinds of tracking stuff built into that. And then also has a really extensive follow-up system. And then you can graduate your leads through a kind of like a sales marketing funnel where it enters stages which are more probable to become a gig that you win versus gigs that you just lose. So you can just grab a project, which is like a little square block, and move it over to the next stage because you just got off the phone and they said they'd like you to do a demo. So now you move it over to the now I'm demoing block, you know, so you're ascending. This project is going somewhere. Then you have other projects so you just got to keep calling back, try to get them to go up to that through that system. Myself, I get about 1 to 2% of the gigs I go after. Yeah, check out HubSpot. I mean, there's a lot of other CRM softwares, but I think HubSpot is pretty damn cool, and it's free. They have like paid versions, but they have a free version, which is pretty extensive. Pasquale, welcome. Italian composers make aesthetically beautiful music. That's the Italian forte. I'm 25% Italian. I'm also 25% Russian. So that's where you get these like deep, well-strategized master plans from the Russians. And you know, you have different fortes with different genes. What do you think would impress a director more on a reel, an original for a low-quality movie or a rescore of a movie? An original of a low-quality movie, but maybe even don't show the scene. Just show them some great music that you can do that sounds cinematic. Or you know what, better yet, I'm going to give you really good advice. Ask them to demo for their film. A scene from their movie. Ask them to clip out a 1-minute scene Don't ask for more than that, because they're probably going to go, well, I tried to find a 1-minute scene, but I only could find one that was 1:45. Trust me, it's a lot of work. So just ask for a short, say 45-second to 1-minute scene. They might give you a 2-minute one though, or 3 minutes, which really isn't fair. But you might want to say at that point, do you have one that's 1 minute? Because I've had a lot of other projects in the pipeline right now, and I'm doing a lot of work. And on spec, I can only put aside enough time in my schedule to produce about 1 minute of score for your demo. So, you got to be diplomatic like that, even if it's not true. It's not right for them to ask you to be like working on their whole damn score just to see if you can do it. And then if they say, no, I really want to see what you do with 3 minutes, then okay, you can decide if you go ahead and do the 3 minutes. Would it set us apart if we record our demos with full live Hollywood orchestra for dollars? Probably in this day and age, no. Because, if you took those same dollars and put them right into some sample libraries and equipment, I think you're going to get, look, everyone needs to own AltiVerb, okay? That's the first $500 you need to spend. AltiVerb, and use the Tadeo scoring stage. Tweak it to your delight. Do they ask for a non-disclosure before handing over a clip to score? I usually offer it. I can say, if you need me to sign a non-disclosure, I'll send one over. So you always make things easy for them, because this whole extra process is all about, what you're going to be doing for them. You don't want to burden them. So, if they need something, you might want to offer it to make them feel secure. But if it's like a independent film, they may not care about the clip that they give you if it's going to get out. They might choose a safe part of their film. I use platforms like Kickstarter to get in touch with filmmakers. Is this a good way to connect? Probably not. Everybody's got this interesting other way of trying to hopefully get pictures and do all these long shots and stuff. And I'm telling you, go to IMDbPro. Make the 20 phone calls for the one project every day, every 3 days. Follow up 20 times if you have to for 100 movies. And get a movie and score the movie. Don't be doing all these strange little, outlying systems that maybe you can get something from that maybe. How you do it is you make the calls and you get a movie. And those movies are the ones that you want to get. The ones from Kickstarter, who knows who you're going to connect with? You'll probably be doing some strange documentary about some guy's dog in the neighborhood. Absolutely chip into IMDbPro if you're ready to work. If you can make finished full film scores and you've got some credits so you can prove you have evidence to show that you're able to be hired and finish the required job, then get that IMDbPro and get on that and move to LA. What are your thoughts about East-West Composer? You're talking about the East-West orchestral sound set? If it's East-West, then I don't like it. Okay. You just invested in it. Well, all right. Just make sure you invest in AltiVerb, because that's going to make it sound a hell of a lot better. And it's not a reverb. You pass your sound through it. You don't send it from your faders. You pass it through it, and it comes out the other side, played on an orchestral stage. AltiVerb, exactly. AltiVerb with the I in the middle. AltiVerb. It's going to cost you $500, but it's going to be like putting a gold bullion into your computer. It is the number one best thing that I have. AltiVerb. I can make anything sound like it's realistically being played on a stage. Best way to show off my work via demo reels is scoring to movie clips or game visuals. Yeah, you can do some of that. I mean, if you can make kick-ass music for a video game, just take a video game, score it, and then use that as a demo. Sure, why not? You might even be able to use that as a demo for a movie. Okay. Yeah, AltiVerb, I mean, you send, like, let's say AltiVerb, what it is it's a technology. It's not a reverb necessarily. It's a technology which emits your music onto the stage that was sampled. They sample an environment. I don't know if I have the time to go into the technicalities of how they do that right now. I mean, one easy way I can describe how they do that is they just like fire a gunshot a blank inside of the concert hall, and then the reverberation, they record the fingerprint of it. I'm trying to put it in layman's terms here. And then that gunshot is like the source sound. And so you take that and you subtract it out and you get only the reverberation and how sound that comes out of that source would reverberate. So then you go ahead and you turn that on your tracks, and now your tracks will sound like they're coming out of that exact same sound source. So what they do is they sample multiple emanation points on a stage, and you set that up. You put your woodwinds, you know, in the middle front or side, however you want. The violins on the left emanating point, more towards the front of the stage. The brass and percussion way in the back, and it will sound absolutely incredible. It will sound so realistic. It is 50% of the realism of your sound. It's huge, and might be $400 to $700, maybe $500. I hate to ask you this, but I don't want to leave to Google it. Is IMDbPro a monthly or yearly sub? I believe they offer both, and I think if you go yearly, it's either $99 or $125. What's the best way to show what I can do without yet having a film credit? I talked about earlier asking to demo a scene from their film. I think that's the best way you could do it. Look, let's say you don't have any credits, and then you tell them, yeah, I can score your film. And do you really think you'd be able to score at the level of what they needed? It's not about getting the gig. You see what I mean? If you're not good enough, accept that and just demo for the next film and work and practice and do what you need to do. If you don't have the material already existing, that's because you haven't proven yourself. By the way, demoing for pictures, it's work. It takes a while. And it can suck. You only want to do that for the ones you really, really want to get the gig on. So, you know, don't even open that Pandora's box. I'm putting samples of work on SoundCloud. Is this good? Absolutely. You know, you want to be able to give links in your, you know, package, in your resume kit. I think if you had 3 full scores there, there'd be no stopping you. If you had 3 scores, each 70 minutes or more with 35 or more cues, at that point you're unstoppable. And you put those all up there, not for your fans, you keep it private if you need to, maybe a couple of those for your fans. Keep it private, put it in a playlist, and then share that massive body of work, and that's going to help. Now if you have just like one track here, one track there, one track here, one track there, they better all be incredible. A successful resume kit is you, what you're best at, so style or genres or passion, a bit on your background, your education, your website, some social media links if they would make sense. You don't want to look bad by having them go to somewhere where you're not being very serious. Put everything that's impressive. I think that's the best advice I could give you. I have like 70 separate cues inspired for loads of different movies. I've been sending links around. Okay, well, you got to make sure that when you're trying to get a project that all the cues sound like exactly what they want. That's one of the problems you might be having with trying to get a gig. Because if they start to hear that you're mostly other stuff and they only like 1 or 2 of your tracks that would be perfect for their movie, they're not going to think you're the perfect composer for them. They're going to keep looking. Maybe you'll get lucky, they'll come back around to you and you'll be one of the top 5 picks. And you might want to ask to demo at that point. You might have too many tracks. Sometimes that can be a problem. You know, you might want to separate them into playlists if you're doing the SoundCloud thing like Preston was mentioning. Separate them into playlists by genre privately and share just the genre that matches the movie that you're submitting for. And HubSpot allows you to manage that stuff really well. The links are trackable, so you can insert the proper link. And they have templates too. You can like literally pull up a template email and just pop it over to them. But remember what I said. Calls are like a 20-to-1 better way to go after any movie than emails. You'll literally get 1 response back if you send 100 emails. But you'll get 40 responses on the phone if you make 100 phone calls. I'm moving to LA this summer. At this point, I feel an internship would be good for me. Any suggestions? And we just talked about internships, Stephen, but I'll talk a little bit more about it. Let me get some water. Hold on. Someone asked, you know, is it better to do an internship in order to become a great composer, successful composer, like come out, graduate an internship and be like, bam, like ready to go with like incredible work and jobs and everything. Or don't go with an internship and instead try to find work by doing the cold calling method that I was talking about. And I said that unless it's one of the top 5 composers, and maybe that's even being generous, top 3, top 4, top 5, then maybe it will be worth it. But you've definitely got to be very talented to work for these guys. Otherwise, you might be disappointed by how they utilize you, and it's not going to go anywhere. I mean, the reason why you might want to go with an internship is you can't get an agent, and you're just like you have a very strange personality, and you're very shy, and you don't want to do all those cold calls, but all across the board, you're very talented. That's kind of a one combination where the internship with the big composer would work, where you're extremely talented. For whatever reason, even though you're extremely talented, you don't want to get your own gigs. I don't know why, but for some reason you don't. Go work for those big guys. You will go through and graduate with opportunity in hand, I guess. But basically what I just said was, in a way, is don't. Because if you can try and get your own gigs by doing cold calls, some of the lower level gigs, if you're just starting out, you get a couple $1,000s per gig, and you'll get a couple gigs per year, hopefully. You're going to get 6 or 7, hopefully, if you really try the cold calling and you get good at it. And then those movies are going to make you better if you, push yourself, if you're not like lazy about it. Then you might get a lot more out of that than just going right into the internship scenario. Because you don't want to get like really, really good at bringing coffee. You want to get really, really good at being better than Hans Zimmer. Where do you start when you're writing for a movie? Strings, piano, percussion. Tempo. Quite literally. So I watch a scene, and I've talked about this in some of the other videos. Make sure you go to my YouTube and type Evan Evans Music on YouTube, and the top channel will be me. Or in my bio on Periscope, here is a link to the YouTube. Go there. Several Periscopes that we've recorded and that are on there that you can check out. So I talked about how I start with feeling the pace of the scene and the tempo of the scene. I mean, okay, the very first thing is you need to figure out where the scene begins and where the scene ends as far as music is going to be. Okay? Next step, the pace. So, you got this, then you got to figure out what's the pace inside. Then you print out like a blank piece of paper which has all these bar lines, and you just put double bar lines where you want something important to happen, and then you change the meter so that it would hit that, okay? And so far you haven't even composed any notes yet, okay? And you just do that sort of like laying out the scene. In old days we used to call it spotting. Nowadays you hardly even do that. You just like put the movie in your sequencer and you just go. But you spot the film. So then you mark up those important hit points, and you make those the downbeats of bars, the most important ones. Then fill in the areas with basically what you want to do in those areas in English. Or it can be a tonality. I want to be Lydian and magical here. You literally write that. You don't even put notes all over the page. So I want to be Lydian and magical here. I want to crescendo slowly and give a wobbly feel. Just write that information in. Over here, I want it to suddenly go boom and then drop down to nothing and have like sparkly sound. You just write completely like that, and you put sort of just the gestures of how you're going to make your music. Then from there, you fill it in with your master themes and motifs and tonalities. You start applying it into just doing the work. And if you do it that way, you get really what I call close to the bone. Really close to the creative process, very direct to your brain. You're not at the mercy of whatever your sounds are. You're not like improvising at the capability of your system. You're actually telling the system what you demand and what you think will be the best way to approach those bars, these bars, these bars, these bars. Then you do the best you can with the system you have, and you make whatever compromises you have to with the orchestra and whatever musicians you have. So, and it just becomes like, I've got to the point where that stuff becomes like rote. The hard part is that creative process, figuring out the gestures and how you're going to approach the scene musically. The rote part is just like sort of doing the hard work and filling in the notes and making a cool action thing, making a cool sparkly thing, making a cool whatever, you know. And that's how I do it. Yeah, absolutely. I call it free scoring. So if it works for you, let others know. Free scoring by Evan Evans. I'm gonna definitely write a book about it. I was talking to a couple of composer friends about that. I've sort of developed it over the years after having done so many movies. You know, in developing your personal language of music expression for film, you want to have your own way of doing the different things that movies call for. You want it to do it your own way. That's what you want to think about. That's how you're going to become you. You want as many personal signatures as possible. For a love scene, don't do what other people do for love scenes. Do what you would do. Come up with it. What I recommended in one of the other Periscopes is write an emotion. A minute's worth of music that's on an emotion. It's not just about being you. It's about finding how you can do something for that particular dramatic need that nobody else has done and that you wouldn't mind doing for the rest of your life and being known for, okay? Make it part of your signature. So like, you know, James Horner would take the piano and go, you know, like with clusters. That was a very cool, like, crescendo transition thing, you know. And so you have to come up with all those different gestures in your own way. How would you do it? What do you like? You know, maybe you can do glissando strings or muted horns in a certain way, or, you know, whatever. Or you can approach action in a certain way.